Hi there, welcome once again to the Single Dads Unplugged. This is part of season 6 and we are recording up in Johannesburg. It's the cold winter, but we are brazing it with all our might. Your host, Stembisa Pagati. Mr. Mthabela, welcome back again. And last time we had a good conversation around presence, father's presence. This time I would like to tackle the question of raising kings and queens. In your case, raising queens with intentionality.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Usually I always say sometimes parenting, you must plan parenting just as you plan your other things.
Yeah.
Intentionality, what does that mean for you?
It means you have to understand that as a parent, you are an architect of the future. You are an architect of social engineering, what they call social engineering. Which what must society looks like? What must society look like? You are part of creating a collective consciousness of how people behave in parenting by the teachings that you teach your kids.
Okay.
You have to understand that whatever principles you are teaching your kids today, those are the principles that they're going to demonstrate in the world. So the intentionality is understanding where you want to be in future and also helping these young people become that, because there'll come a time, Mr. Pagati, when we will no longer be influential in creating or in passing certain laws in society. Our kids will take over. They may not take over in parliament. But they will take over on the social platforms. They will take over. For example, if you go to the social platforms and see how some people are rude and they lack manners, they lack a way of teaching of talking to people. It's because that's what they were taught. They are simply reflecting what they learned at home. So if there was someone that they loved, who taught them principles, or someone that they respect, there are certain things that you can't just go Pagati to social media and start saying, because you know I'm accountable to certain people. So I think for me, that is why before you marry someone, you have to be intentional about who you marry. Before we become intentional about how we parent our kids. If you are not married yet and you are looking for a partner, be intentional about the partner that you marry. Don't just marry physical assets.
I like Lento I show you around social conditioning. And I always say that if we can fix a family structure, we can fix social ills that we see today. Where does it start? And I spoke not long ago about the boy child on a TV show, especially boys. And I think that if we can start grooming young men, we don't have to fix broken men. Where does it start? That's social conditioning. And how can we encourage fathers to start right at home around conditioning of a child?
It starts by fixing us as fathers.
Okay.
I want to talk about women. I mean, this is single dads after all.
Absolutely.
But I know that ladies always like to peek into what we're talking about.
Exactly.
But I think it is important that, Pagati, some of us, we need to heal from the wounds that were inflicted on us when we were young boys, from the wounds that were inflicted on us when we were young men. Some of us need to heal from that woman who said no to you. Some of us need to heal from that woman who turned you down, from your parents who loved your brother more than they loved you, who loved your sister more than they loved you. And you said, because, you know, it starts when you go through a traumatic experience. There's a certain vow that you make in your subconscious mind, deep down in your heart of hearts. You make a vow that never again, never again will people do this to me. Never again will I allow this to be done to me. Which is why, if you don't mind me making an example.
Sure, go ahead,
Because of your dark skin, you may have... People may have said things to you when you were young. And you may have said to yourself, you know, I'll never allow people to talk to me like that again. Even if 20 years later, I jokingly say, hey, already for you, that's it's just a joke.
Hey,
But for you, it's a trigger because it takes you back to.
Yeah.
We live with a lot of triggers as men. And the people, the wives that we are dealing with, our women, our kids, don't even know what our triggers are. But unless Umuzi heals, for example, I had very skinny legs when I was young.
And you're a boy.
And they called me Ndiyatasula.
Oh,
Yeah, and they called me Sticks Morewa. They used to call me Sticks Morewa.
Sticks.
You know? So as a result, I was very conscious of not wearing short pants.
Like you needed to
You know,
long
but
pants.
if my wife were to one day just jokingly say something about my skinny legs,
gonna take
already
you back.
sengikwatile angisakhulumi wena awusafuna ukhipha imali yegrocer la endlini how ugesi ucishile uthenga nina ngithi mina nemlenze emihle
Yabona.
because they touched an area that I have not healed
From
I think for us to be able to pass on the baton, we need to make sure that we have healed as men. We need to forgive. Then there's a very big gap that needs to be fixed by healing, and that needs to be fixed by forgiving. And a lot of us are walking around, we are not even talking to our parents, some of us, because of the trauma that we went through. Your question is, where does it begin? It begins with us as men healing. It begins with us being seriously intentional about the legacy that we are passing on to our kids. Think about, let's talk about Judge Zondo, for example. He says he comes from abject poverty where there's a certain Indian businessman that helped him. And because that one Indian man helped a little boy, this old man has impacted so many people, so many people's lives. He has touched so many people's lives, including his own kids. If this man was not helped, Ubabzono could have been isidakwa saselokishini.
Could have ended differently.
Isidakwa sasemakhaya.
Exactly.
You know, but because somebody poured into his life, it changed the lives of so many other people. So mina I say, let us therefore be intentional ukuthi these young boys like us, your question was, where does it begin? It begins with us healing, and it begins with us being intentional about the kind of future we want to create through how we are mentoring these young boys. So if we are to help, let's say for example, Bapagati, you adopt 5 boys. You say, these boys, I want to groom them. By adopting, I'm not saying bring them into your home and let them be your kids. No. Every now and then sit down with them.
Support them.
Give them a call. How are you? How are you doing? Are you well? No, hey man, hey, okay. No, you know what? There's this book that I bought. I'm going to give it to you. You know, mentor them. How are you feeling? No, man, hey, I've been dumped. Is it your first one?
That's life.
Don't worry. 5 more are coming.
It's okay.
So just when they thought my world is crumbling and then Ikrotman is saying, it's normal. I mean, I was dumped 5 times and I'm still standing. It's like, it's not so bad after all.
Yeah.
And these kids, these 5 boys that you will mentor, in the next 25 years, they'll come back and say, Bapagat, had it not been for you, I would be in a different place. So that's the intentionality for me that we need to be conscious of as men, to say, what kind of a future are we building? Particularly Tinamodak.
Sure.
The Indian society is very intentional about the family.
That's different.
The white society is very intentional. The Jewish society is very intentional. If I may give you a very sad stats, Baba, when we talk about kids who don't know their fathers or kids who don't live with their fathers, in the Indian community, only 6% of kids don't know their fathers.
6%. Imagine.
6. Followed by the white society, I think they are sitting around 11%. Followed by the colored community, sitting at about 37, if not 47, I stand to be corrected. 37 or 47%. The black people. 66% of kids don't know their fathers. 20% of kids in South Africa don't live with their fathers. That's a very bad stats. It says to me, we need to be intentional about the kind of young people that we are creating in our society, the kind of boys that our girls are going to marry, and the kind of men that our daughters will marry.
I'm glad the conversations are beginning to shift around intentionality and encouraging men and fathers to be present. But I'm starting to think that maybe we also have to learn from younger fathers. I posted something not long ago that said millennial dads are 7 times more present than previous generations. And I'm curious, what about young dads that they find so important about creating connections with their kids? Is it because of the conditioning that we're raised with as sons, as the older generation? Is it because we grew at a time where father was in Joburg, we grew up somewhere else, coming back twice a year? What is it? Is it traumatic experience during our... How can we say Gen X's and Boomer fathers, you can also be present to your kids?
I think whenever for these young boys are intentional about fatherhood because the majority of them were raised by single mothers.
Okay.
Like I said, when you go through a traumatic experience, there's a certain vow that you make in your heart. I'll never let my kids go through this.
Yeah.
My parents were young when they had me. My father was a student teacher. My mother was still a student.
Sure.
And I didn't have a bad upbringing in a sense that I had all my needs met. But there was always that gap in my heart to say, I really wish that my father and my mother lived together. I yearned
it's
for...
the best setup that you can think
I
of.
yearned for that setup.
Yeah.
And I said in my heart, when I'm old, I do not want to have kids all over the place, number one. And I said to myself, I do not want to marry a girl who has a child because I want to create that thing that I yearned for. I'm present in the lives. It's not nice, Bafo. I know that as men, we like to say, we are doing this co-parenting thing well. We are handling this. It may be well for
tricky,
you, but it's very tricky for the kid.
For the kid.
I know because I'm a product of that.
Ish.
My parents had an arrangement where I would go and live with my father and then I go and live with my mother. And I didn't lack. I don't want to lie and say, no, things were bad. No, shame. You didn't.
Wow, that's great.
But I yearned for that stability. And I vowed as a little boy to say, when I'm older, I will make sure. So the reason I think these young boys is a majority of them come from backgrounds where they were raised by single mothers.
Yes.
But now they don't want their own kids to go through that like they did.
I want to ask you a question around, because we're sticking with this theme of intentionality.
Yeah.
Last time we spoke, you spoke about love and you spoke about your granddad.
Yeah.
That was the legacy you could recall. How do you balance love and discipline? Because we know that value building and discipline comes from a father. But in your own family, how do you make sure that, yes, that caring kindness and love is there from you as a dad, but simultaneously you're instilling discipline in your kids?
I think what is important is that for me as well, I'm dealing with my trauma. Like I said earlier on to you, that we need to heal from our traumas.
Sure.
I'm also dealing with my trauma. I don't know if I've healed. I don't know if I'll ever completely heal. But whatever happened to me, I say not to my kids.
No.
So that can be a good thing, but done for a wrong reason. The other day, my daughter, Usbusisiwe, was saying to me, Baba, you need to relax a bit. You are too strict. You know?
Just loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, dude. Loosen up a little bit,
You're
dude.
too tight.
And I'm just thinking, do you understand the challenges out there in the world? I don't want you to go through certain things in life. And she doesn't understand. But she is reading it as a good thing, but just too much. But I'm reading it as I'm not protective enough because I'm thinking of my background. So I think we need to be careful as well as parents not to try and fix our own mistakes through them or to try and fix ourselves by overdoing it with them. So I think, Mina, what I'm doing in my family is I try to because I always say to them, one day we will die. Your mother and I are in the same
at some
car
point.
together. You know, I've seen people's lives changing instantly when parents die. I have a friend who passed away through COVID, and the following year I saw the father dying. And these kids used to live a good life. In a split second, they lost it all. So I always say to my kids, guys, your mother and I will die. We may die tomorrow. I don't want Uguti, if we should die, you guys should be lost in life and not knowing. I want you to be able to stand without us. I think a beautiful legacy that we can give our kids is to be able to live without us.
Without, yeah.
And what we like to do as parents, we like to hold on to them so much.
Yeah.
This other friend of mine was telling me the other day that when he wanted to leave his home, his mother collapsed. And he suspects that it was all just planned and just to emotionally control him, to say, see what you're doing to me, I can't live without you. No.
No.
You must raise me to live without you.
Exactly. That's the resilience that I want us to talk about.
Yeah.
Because how do we make sure as fathers, Babu Mthabela, I'm thinking now, this is the question that I've been thinking about. Uguti, we raise self-aware, disciplined kids that can do without us, but that can face the world. Because I said the other day on my channel, because we grew up without a lot of things as dads, we try to give our kids everything.
Yeah.
But they don't learn anything.
Yes.
So how do we make sure that while we supporting them, but we teach them resilience and self-awareness?
Hey, that's a very difficult one, Baba, because when you and I grew up, when your mother said, Stembiso, angnayo, she didn't have it.
Yeah.
When you say, I don't have it, your kids know you have it.
They know.
So it becomes very difficult for us to train them, but also we need to see the times and the season that we are in.
Okay.
Because sometimes we want to fix and treat them the way
different times.
Yeah, in the 80s, like how things were done in the 80s.
Yeah.
We want to keep those principles. It's fine, keep the principles, but realize that we are living in a different world altogether.
Yeah.
Tina, we were told kids come through an aeroplane. These ones know exactly. No. Two people must come together, and then this one has an egg, this one has a seed, and then so they tell you the whole thing. You can't just say no, panoi, no.
It does not. No. Today, kids ask why, and I think I told a story at a father and son round table. Josh, you were there last time when I spoke about that my father would say, "Yeah, you never wear a hat in the house," and he didn't have to give us a reason. And then until I had a son of my own, and I said, "Hey," he kept saying,
Yeah.
And then he took it off, but he went outside, but he came back.
Yeah, I said,
he asked, "But why?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, because it's not allowed." He said, "Yeah, but still, I need to understand why." You could say that he was curious.
Yeah.
Because
not out of disrespect.
No, not because he needs to know the reason. Because if he shares that with someone, there must be a reason.
Yeah.
So this generation will ask why, or why not.
Yes.
So what's going to happen if I wear a hat in the house? So the question to you then is, how do we teach our kids? Because I'm curious, have you caught yourself within a temptation of almost repeating the patterns of the way you were raised?
Yes.
Now, when you're parenting now, has that happened to you? Because it happens to me all the time.
It happens, Baba. And that is what is called generational curses. Sometimes we think generational curses is some big beast, it's a monster in the spirit. That is... Generational curses and generational strongholds are things that we were taught that we pass on consciously or subconsciously.
Subconsciously sometimes.
Which is why also in Abapagati it's very important to learn to forgive our parents. Because what you don't forgive, you will repeat. What you promised I would never do. Mina, I would never do this to my own kids. You'll find yourself doing it if you did not forgive your father who did it to you. So I think to break such cycles is to be able to confront them and to be able to let go. And forgive your parents. A majority of us, we need to forgive our parents, Bafu,
Yeah.
for the things they've done to
No, but
us.
Chuck, you see, but for earlier you spoke about healing and childhood trauma. I'm just wondering, on my podcast, I've invited a few specialists and experts on men's childhood trauma and healing. What have you found useful for you, even if it's not like a professional kind of help?
Yes.
What have you found useful for you to come away from those old patterns? Just for you, what helps you? Is it perhaps like spirituality, yoga, meditation, whatever? What works for Mthabela?
What works for me to be able to even sit at the same table with my father was the fact that if forgiveness, I realized that if forgiveness does not start with forgiving, forgiveness starts with a desire to forgive.
A desire first.
You first have to desire it, because you can say, I forgive you, but if there's no desire to forgive that person, you are just saying words, my friend, and you are not really forgiving.
You're not in it, okay.
So the first step for me is ask the Holy Spirit to help you to want to forgive. Once you want to do it, it becomes easier even to pray for them.
Then you can move away from that space.
I remember a story of Baba Creflo Dollar.
Yeah.
Who was telling a story of this other preacher who was always preaching badly about him, saying all these negative things about him. And it went on for a long time. So he started hating the brother.
Ish.
But he knew as a son of God, he can't hate another person, particularly a pastor.
Yeah.
So he says he went to God in prayer and said, God, this man is always insulting me. This man is always saying bad things to me. And these clips are always trending on social platforms.
Yeah.
What do I do? God says, forgive him. Says, but this man, he started it. he did it first, kind of thing. And God says, I want you to go to him and carry an $18,000 check and go and give to him. He says, I said, no, Father, no, I'm not doing it.
It's not happening.
Eventually, because of his relationship with God, eventually he takes the check, he goes there, the man who makes him wait for like 3 hours or something like that. Eventually, he sees him. He says, brother, what's going on? What have I done to you?
Yeah.
And he starts crying. He's like, what have I done to you? This man starts crying and says, hey, my brother, I'm sorry. I think it's jealousy. So they talk it out and they hug. For a long time, they hug. And then he takes out the check of $18,000. He says, God said I must give this to you. This man started crying and said, this is exactly what my ministry needs today. Their friendship started from a place of forgiving first, but forgiveness came as a gift from God.
From God.
To be able to forgive. Because I don't want to sit here and say nice words like, you must forgive your parents. Some people out there are going through horrible life experiences because of what their parents did to them. It's true that some parents hate their kids. It's true that some parents have done everything in their power.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah, everything in their power to make their lives harder than they should have. To make their lives, to make sure that they don't become anything in life. Some parents have said horrendous things to their kids. And I don't want to sit here and be careless about forgiveness as if it's an easy thing. Like, does this guy even understand what he's asking me to do? No, I understand. I'm asking you to do the impossible. But ask God, involve God in the equation of you forgiving, because unless you forgive, there are certain things that you can never move
you create
from.
blockages.
You create unnecessary spiritual blockages and psychological blockages, because even your kids will not know why we don't visit your granny.
Yeah,
we always go to my mother's granny. Why don't we go to daddy's mother? Because they will, even if you don't talk about it, your kids will pick it up.
Yeah.
So I think in order to be able to move, we have to involve God in the equation and say, Moya Ngcwele, ngisize, ngifune ukumxolela lo muntu, because I honestly do not want to forgive.
Yes.
But ask God to help you to want to do it, and then you can start praying and saying, God, I forgive them. And when God says pray for your enemies, it doesn't say pray for their destruction. Pray for their for them to thrive.
They need repentant.
Pray for their
success, and healing as well.
Yeah, because when you do that, you are healing yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You speak, before we close, we talk a lot in our Single Dads network about social fathers, spiritual fathers. What do you say to those baby mamas or single moms that are saying, I can't get access to the father of my child, or he passed, or he's hot and cold, he's on the run? Because some of the mothers say, I don't have anyone else to play a role of a father to this child, but I just think you can find one. But in your experience, look at yourself, your grandfather was involved.
Yeah.
But is there an opportunity for moms raising kids on their own to find social fathers from community, relatives, colleagues, churches, to be father to their kids where they don't have access to the
It becomes very difficult, Babu Steliso, because we are living in an era where you can't just trust your son with Babu Mthabela. Because you might find Babu Mthabela has molested your child. And when you keep saying, go to Babu Mthabela, he's a good man. He's a great guy. He can help you become a better. But Babu Mthabela naye unokusa kwakhe. So and I would say church is safe, but the church is also not safe. Because even the man standing on the pulpit may not be the safest one.
Yeah.
So I think it's about you and God. Ask God to help you to identify someone that can help your son.
And someone that you can trust.
Someone that you can trust.
And your son can also trust.
That your son can also trust as well. But also let things be open. If you are mentoring kids, the parent must know what you say to these kids. Sometimes when I have time, I do hold some WhatsApp messages, like some WhatsApp video calls to say, guys, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. How's it going? How are you? So I think we have a role to play as men before these women even ask us.
Proactively
let's proactively start coming up with programs. Let there be more men like you. There's I almost said there's a scripture.
It's okay.
There is a proverb that says, for evil to prevail, it is for good men to sit and do nothing. I got tired of sitting and doing nothing, and I decided to start a book club for young people. Where I sometimes, when I have time, I sit down with these kids, give them books, I ask the author to come, and they talk about their book with these kids. And it's amazing how much these authors have spoken into the lives of these young people. I've seen a complete change with some of them. Now, I'm not saying it is because of my book club that they became better people. No, they're destined for greatness. But books and helping them to read, it has helped them become much wiser people. But it is not a very good space. It happens. It's life. It's not a good space to have kids that don't live with a mother and a father. But it happens. That you find yourself in that situation. Capitalize on that situation. Mina, what I would ask, particularly mama, is to allow kids to have a relationship with their fathers, even if Nina and second Aonye, because
definitely
this thing of weaponizing a child against a parent, one day you will answer. You will answer. In fact, you will answer here on earth before you answer. And when they
grow up, they figure it out later in life that actually death is not that bad.
I saw a tweet. Was it a tweet or was it Facebook? I can't remember. That said something like, when kids grow up, sooner or later they'll figure out which parent was wrong.
Which parent was wrong, exactly.
Because some parents are always saying, your father is nothing, your father is good for nothing, your mother is horrible, your mother horrible. This and that. Only for the kids to find out and figure it out when they are older that actually, ma, right? Actually,
you
Baba,
have a problem.
You are the one who is a problem. You know. So I think to answer you, Babu Stembi, so I really don't know, because you can't trust a man on a collar, and you can't trust
it's hard.
a seemingly good man out there, because people are facing their own traumas as well.
I want to close with this. I sometimes talk about creating a sense of identity in your kids or children.
Yeah.
How does that look like for you? Ukuthi uqeqeshe ingane zakho ukuthi guys, believe in who you are.
Yeah.
Your self-identity, you are unique, and trust in your abilities, your wisdom, and your capabilities and your skills. How does that work for you? You said earlier so that Baba Mthabela, no Mama Mthabela may not be here tomorrow, so that they are all able to sustain their lives without you. How do you instill that sense of identity in your kids?
Teachings.
Okay.
Like I said, for example, to you, that I have a book club for young people.
Sure.
And I only profile self-help and motivational or inspirational books.
Yes.
By South African authors,
Okay.
strictly.
Yeah.
So I encourage them to become readers because I know what reading did for me
okay.
as a young boy.
All right. All right.
I encourage them to read. The other day I gave my daughter John Kehu.
Yeah, John, yeah.
Mind Power.
Man,
And-
amazing book.
Yeah, amazing book. And I'm talking about teenagers. Exposing them to this kind of material, it helps them to know things that I myself otherwise would not have taught them,
Ish, yeah.
or would not have taught them like the author
Like
teaches
the
it.
author would, yeah.
You know, so it is important to also understand, because this is what I like to say when I'm talking to couples. Ukuthi, understand that your partner does not have your background.
Ish.
Therefore, they do not have your worldview. They don't see the world like you see the world. So sometimes we think, yeah, but it's obvious. Can't you see? It's so obvious. You don't leave a cup here, but no, but what's wrong if I leave the cup here?
Leave it somewhere
No,
else.
but you can't put the cup here. It's going to leave a mark. Leave it there. It's
Yeah.
obvious. No, it's obvious for you.
For you.
Because
yeah.
that's what you were taught in your house.
Yeah.
It's obvious for you because you grew up with the father. I didn't.
It's a different circumstance.
I think it is important to realize that we don't have the background that our kids have.
Yeah.
They don't have our backgrounds.
Yeah.
They don't have our future, and we don't have their future.
Wow.
They are moving in a direction and in a future that we don't understand. We don't know what the world will look like with AI taking over 90% of the workforce. We don't know what the world will look like in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So we need to prepare them to face anything.
Anything.
We need to prepare our kids to be able to stand for
Because
anything.
that's the
that may
resilience we were talking about. I want to come to our audience. You can hear, and Mr. Mthabela's story teaches us that sometimes just being intentional means that you just spend time with your kids, find rituals and ways to build that knowledge, but also allow them to be. I want you to close. If you had to speak to men out there, maybe use that camera over there in front of you, just talk to someone who has given up. And I want you now to talk from as a spiritual father now. In there, someone who's a father that has given up on trying to access the child because the relationship with the mother has gone wrong. What hope? What opportunity do you think they have to turn things around? And what encouragement would you give them?
I would say, my dear brother or sister even, don't give up on umuntu. In Zulu we say, awukho umgqomo wokulahla umuntu.
Yes.
I understand you've tried many times to access your child. But inkanyamba yanqaba nomntwana. I understand you've tried so many times to have access to impact the child, to raise the child, to spend time with the child. But this other person, and you will never even be able to change the other person. But don't give up on the child, because there will come a day when the child will say, but Baba, why did you give up on me? I understand this is what my mother did. I understand this is what my father did. But why did you give up on me? Imagine if God gave up on you. The things we've done. Imagine if God, after Adam and Eve fell, God gave up on humanity. Imagine the day when God said to Moses, I'm going to kill all these people because I set them free, and now they are worshiping a golden bull. And Moses says, no, but you can't do that for the sake of your name. People will say you could not save your people. And God did not give up on the Israelites because Moses intervened and interceded. I'm here to intervene and intercede and say, imagine your resilience and your love for your child makes you to stand against the waves or makes you to stand against the wind of this other parent who doesn't want you to access the child, one day the child will know who was wrong and who was right. I'm here to beg you to say, I understand your frustration, and your frustration is valid, and your frustration is true. It's true. You are going through that. I'm not going to sit here and try to philosophize things. It's not about philosophy, but I'm just here to say, please don't give up, because one day the child will know who was wrong and who was right. And if by God's grace they want to give you another chance, that will be your time to rise above the challenges and show the child the love. Because just because the other person is raising them, it doesn't mean they are raising them with love and truth. Unkulunkulu created a mother and a father for a reason. There is a gift that you carry for that child that only you can give, that nobody else can give that child. So whatever you are going through, I'm just here to say, hang on. Just one more time. Hang on until you get your opportunity to spend time with the child. They may not even want to give you an opportunity to the child, but when I play your role, because one day the other person will have to face some consequences of what they did.
Baba, this is beautiful. I'm feeling goosebumps because this is such a nice way to end here. If there's someone listening and you hit the call, probably, just possibly, the life of your children and yourself might just turn around. And I wish you well. Click and subscribe on our channel and follow us, because Mr. Mthabela is going to come back on a different topic. Hopefully, we can actually have him as a regular guest on our show, because he's got so much wisdom. Baba, all the best. This was good. I like it.
God bless you, man.